Each year we have a focus theme, and this year the focus theme is on refocusing quality of e-learning. We were finding that very, very relevant to discuss this year to refocus on quality of e-learning because in the last months and the last decade, the issue of open education, of MOOCs, and of open educational resources was becoming more and more popular. And so organizations, educators, institutional leaders are asking themselves, how do we deal with these issues and where can we find guidance? What is a good MOOC? What is a good open educational resource? And what also changes when open education enters our often closed institutions? EFQUEL was founded to facilitate the communication and the dialogue between the different European countries and between the different organizations in Europe as well. So we are basically interested in finding quality consensus for all different educational sectors, be it the vocational education and training or the higher education, school education. And our approach is always the same, to discuss in three different steps. We think that the first step is technology enters the educational organization, the educational scenario. The second step is that educators, institutional leaders, learners, policymakers recognize and realize that this changes not only the provision, but it also changes the education, the pedagogy. And the third step is that if you have realized that it changes the pedagogy, the way you think about learning, you are also having to realize that it changes the whole organization. The philosophy of how organizations think about themselves as educational institutions. EFQUEL is very much interested in creating a forum for dialogue for these organizations to come together and share their experiences. And what we do is always, again, a three-step model. First of all, we're trying to bring together those who are concerned and interested in how to provide good education in the different educational levels using ICT. The second level is that we are extracting from these discussions and debates interests and that we are forming them into initiatives. We have now run 20 initiatives in the last 8 years, bringing together more than over 10 to 12 million euros. And involving more than 150 organizations. And then from these initiatives, we are extracting the products and the services, and if they are valuable to the community, we try to host these services. Right now, we have review services, certification services, consulting services. You find in EFQUEL frameworks for quality of adult learning, quality for innovation in schools, and so these are all materials and services which are made to help our members and to help also organizations in Europe, which are non-members, to find their path towards better quality and quality improvement. For MOOCs now, we can clearly identify grand challenges, the grand challenges. The first one is, of course, the business models. We see that MOOCs have had a huge take-up, they had a huge marketing entry, a huge awareness was created, but now we see that a sustainable funding is not being generated. So the question will be in very, very near future, how can MOOCs be actually funded and financed? The second one is the question of recognition for MOOC learning. How can learners which are learning in MOOCs bring the learning achievements and the learnings, the key learnings, the learning credits also, from the MOOC area, which is largely informal and uncredited, non-examined, to the formal area of higher education, for example. Is it imaginable that in the future the pattern of curriculars are changing, that students are bringing in credits from their home institution, where they are campus students, and mixing that with MOOC education, which they get from somewhere around the world. MOOC quality project was fascinating. We were actually interested in the question, what is a good quality MOOC? And we were looking in the literature and the blog post and everything, and we found there is actually no really developed concept yet. There's not even a debate yet about quality of MOOCs. And so we were thinking, before we can answer this question, we need to have a broad debate on this, because we need to bring together experiences, discussions, debates, we need to create a forum. And so the idea was born very quickly. We said, we're going to ask the 12 leading experts on MOOCs, which were also the originators of MOOCs, like Stephen Downes and Paul Stacey, and also Gronny Connell and others, to provide us with 1,500 words of their best thinking of what are the most important dimensions for quality in MOOCs. These posts were put on a blog for 12 weeks in a row, each post for 1 week. And we had a massive readership, it was also a massive blog project. We had 15,000 readers up to today. And then afterwards we were extracting the essence out of that. And we were trying to find recommendations. We created a project which was just accepted. It's called Open Educational Ideas and Innovations, and it's about creating a community of educators to already collaborate on the ideas and the innovations which then lead to the creation of open educational resources. Another initiative is the VM-PASS initiative. The VM-PASS initiative starts in October, and for 2 years will work on a mechanism for recognizing open learning. We had in the last 2 years worked on this issue as well, and now we have a follow-up initiative, because we think that we need to explore a little further how we can actually help learners document their achievements which they achieved in open learning environments. The idea of VM-PASS is to create a learning passport, and in this learning passport the learning experiences are listed in a certain way and credentialized in a certain way. I think what is very, very important is that we make experiences. The real big challenge is that open education meets closed educational institutions. We need to be able to tie into formal education the informal bit of education. It is a big challenge of the future to make value of the entire learning and knowledge body and competence skill set of learners, and not just to recognize those parts which have been developed in formal institutional education, like in your university course. That will lead to institutions which are open to that. That will lead to curricular patterns which are changed. We are talking about patchwork curricula there. If you imagine you're a student in a university and you come to this university and you say, university, you know what? I know already 5 of the 12 modules which I have to study here, and I can demonstrate that if you let me pass an exam, but I don't want to hear the lecture. And the university says, okay, you can do that. You can show that you have the equivalent of this knowledge and skills, but just making a test with a professor. And that will then lead into you being only where it's only necessary that you study the rest. Quality is always on the forefront of all of these discussions. We need to find out how we can use these open patterns, how we can use the technology-enabled new educational patterns, which I described now, in order to improve the learning experiences, in order to improve the lifelong learning ability of learners as well.